Side Part. It's like a book club with your best friend, but make it a podcast. Welcome back, crawlers, to another episode of Side Part. I'm Nikki, your bookish bestie, and today I'm so excited to dive back into The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinniman, which is book 4 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Reminder, this is a 3-part series, and today in part 2, we're going to be focusing on chapters 13 through 24. I will link part 1 down in the description below, along with all the other Dungeon Crawler Carl videos if you're interested in looking at those. Remember, you're reading along with me. I have not read ahead in this series, so all my thoughts, theories, reactions are just based on the first 3 books and the first 24 chapters of book 4. Which means there will be spoilers for the first 3 books and the first 24 chapters of this book. Also, friendly reminder, these are very adult books with some dark scenes and some very dark humor. So if you have little ears around, just be mindful of that. Before we dive into my reactions and thoughts and theories, I just want to talk about something. I posted a reel a few days ago talking about how Carl has a savior complex, and a lot of people in the comments felt like diminishing Carl's character down to just a complex really did disservice to his character and his character's arc. And now that I'm over halfway done with book 4, I think I'd have to agree. I just feel like Carl's character is so much more nuanced than that. To be honest, I'm not sure I took the characters as seriously in books 1 through 3. I think books 1 through 3 were really good at like setting up the dungeon and the characters. But my goodness, I feel like the characters in this book especially are becoming so much more rich and nuanced, and I didn't think they could get deeper, but they are. They're getting deeper, and we're really starting just to see these character arcs just become so much more dynamic. And so here's me eating my words and humbly admitting that I think my initial assessment of Carl's character is shifting. It's definitely shifting as the books progress, because I just feel like you think you know the characters in books 1 through 3. And then in book 4, you kind of just have like this brain chattering like realization that, oh my gosh, there's like so many layers to this series. And I'm not quite sure I got it right the first go around, but I think that's the fun in a read along, is you're kind of seeing my thoughts and my feelings shift and change as I progress with the series. So with that being said, let's chat about The Gate of the Feral Gods, chapters 13 through 24. I think it makes sense to start with the looming questions that I had at the end of part 1. First things first, is Chris as deranged as he's being portrayed? Never in my wildest dreams did I think Maggie was going to pick like the same race as like the Valte Corp. I can't remember the exact name of the race, but essentially she's a parasitic like brain entity, and she invaded Chris's body to get to Carl. And like, my goodness, I was not expecting that. And then we have this moment where like Katya's just shooting him with like the lava rock monster bolts. That's not the right name, but that's like what I'm gonna call him, and is stunning him continuously. And Carl's like, oh my god, I can't save him. I told Imani I would try to help him because I should help him, and Donut just opens up a hole and traps him in the necropolis below. And so now Carl is just trying to still figure out how to bring him down to the next level, so hopefully Mordecai can help him and get the parasite Maggie out of his brain. And this is what I love about this series, is like I can literally never predict what's going to happen. I thought maybe like, just on the surface, like Chris was going to pick a race and it was going to just essentially like influence who his character is and maybe his personality. And I thought we were just getting what Matt was telling us. I was so wrong. But I think that's why I love this so much. And then obviously that's why Chris killed Frank, because it was Maggie, and she was mad that he no longer had the ring and got rid of him. So there is no love lost in that relationship, that's for sure. But one thing that Maggie kind of drops that I think I like really put like a big asterisk next to it was how they can bring people back in the lower levels of the dungeon. And I have to wonder, who would they bring back for Carl? Would they bring back B? If they did, now I would have to think that this would really put pressure on Carl and Donut's relationship. But now, I like to think that they've made this bond where that wouldn't be impacted by Bee coming into the dungeon. I'd like to think it wouldn't impact their relationship at all, but I do think it would. And I feel like the dungeon, I don't know if dungeon masters is the right term, but we're going to call them that. I feel like the Borant Corp is sadistic enough to really try to derail the bond between Donut and Carl because they become so formidable at this point. The second question I had was what's going on with Zev? Well, one, we know Zev's still in there. Actually, backtrack. Whoa, let's talk about Lolita for a second because I feel like that was just like the most wild thing. Like I thought we were going to have to endure her for books. I thought she was here to stay, especially because she's part of like the Borant Corp and part of the Bloom. And I was like, well, this stinks. And Carl was like, not today. You're gone. And I think this is like one, it just shows how far Carl is willing to go. But two, I think it also shows how much he's always planning ahead, but also plays a part of the dumb fool at the same time. Like, especially with everything with Lolita, like, it just seems like, oh, I just wanted to play at my scrapping table. And, you know, he has Donut's little, like, mock merch doll up there. And he just seems like he's just doing things haphazardly when in reality, he's plotting and he's trying to take Lolita down. And it just shows how far he's willing to go to, one, protect his friends. And part of me has to wonder if it really was not only for Zev, but for Donut as well, right? And he just, I just really love how his character is just becoming both ruthless, but increasingly more caring as these books progress. Like the two extremes somehow live in the same body, and he's able to have like this moral code that allows him to delineate who deserves what. And while he's always still trying to save crawlers and NPCs, he will not hesitate to be ruthless when he needs to be. And I think that's allowing him not only to be successful in the dungeon, but still allowing him to preserve some sense of like who he is. And he won't let the dungeon, as he says time and time again, break him. But obviously the situation with Lolita leads them to meet with a syndicate liaison. I think it was Oren. Yeah, it was Oren. And then we also know that he is the same parasitic entity as the Valdre Corporation, but he's a syndicate liaison. So then that also makes me wonder, what is Valdre's like connection with the syndicate? And how is that going to impact the dungeon to come? And Oren kind of alludes to like them having far more control on the lower levels of the dungeon. And you're starting to kind of wonder like, whoa, what's going on behind the scenes here? We do learn some important things from that meeting when Carl is meeting with the syndicate liaison. We learn that Agatha is deemed as a helper. What does that even mean? Who is she helping, first of all? And why is she in the dungeon? And I just have so many questions about this little weirdo pushing the shopping cart. But anyway, I think she's going to become a much more instrumental part in books to come. They're also having like some odd 15 attacks on personnel for the dungeon, which is so much higher than dungeons in prior seasons, whatever. And this makes me wonder, is it like truly because of not only Borant being cheap and how they're running the dungeon, but does it also have to, well, I think they said at one point, is it because humans don't take well to being like bossed around by fish? Potentially. Or I think the term was actually mud skippers. Nonetheless, I just feel like there's this angst and anger, and Carl is going to roll with that. Like he is ready to just burn it all down. And then Mordecai, after their meeting with Orson or the liaison, he says, oh my gosh, like the syndicate liaison's already getting involved. Just wait till the lawyers get here. And I am so confused. Like, who are these lawyers for? What are they doing? How does this come into play? Like, it's just such a random plot point, but every time it gets mentioned, I'm like, what does this mean? I don't understand. Another question that I kind of had rolling around. So they have this meeting with Orson and they get back, right? And they realize they've missed 5 days. And one of the questions I had is Carl going to have to actually defeat all 4 quadrants by himself? Or is he going to have to learn to like actually rely on other crawlers and realize all the other crawlers are far more capable? And is that going to kind of interrupt his like self-conceptualization of who he is and his pivotal role in the dungeon? So when we get back from that meeting with Orson, we realize that, oh my goodness, so much time has passed. Katya is really capable and did not skip a beat. She realized Carl wasn't coming back, and she's like, well, I can't waste time. I'm capable. I got this. And I love this for two reasons. One, I think Carl almost needed to be physically taken away from the game to realize kind of the abilities of others and how he doesn't have to necessarily shoulder everything. But two, I think it also shows that Katya, like, her growth has become huge, especially in this book. She's really coming into her own. She's taking a leadership role. And I could kind of feel that tension, though, when Carl got back. He did not like being out of the loop. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, it was palpable, right? And Carl is just become this person in the dungeon that's kind of has this notoriety. And part of me wonders, how do I say this? I'm just trying to understand, like, what motivates his character aside from just like genuinely being a good dude that likes to help others. Like, there has to be like more motivation almost out of like fear of something. And I'm just trying to unpack and figure out, what is it? What is it about him that drives him? And it could also be like this, you know, a few people like on my socials have talked about like his identity with being in the Coast Guard, which I don't feel like I've really talked about a lot on here, but I do think it's an important piece of his character and who he is, and like that no man left behind kind of attitude. But I also think there's a lot about his trauma, especially with his family, that I don't even feel like we scratched the surface with yet. Another question that I had was, what is the Gate of the Feral Gods? Like, there was this one point where we're talking with Carl's talking with Juicebox, and Juicebox is becoming a really big part of the story. And I feel like she's going to become a bigger part in this series, but I'll read the direct quote. She says, the artifact has 3 parts. My brother has one piece, which he stole from the Dromedarians. The Gnomish commandment has the second, and the third is on the surface in the hands of the Mad Mage, which we now know as Ghazi. 2 pocket watches and a winding box. When they're put together, the gate can be opened. So we know the gnomes have one. We know the changeling brother has one, and we know Ghazi has the box. So we know that like Carl has a possibility to get all these pieces, and now we kind of are starting to understand like the main plot is to like potentially open this gate. We also start hearing the mentioning of the void a lot, especially in this series of chapters, and we start wondering like, okay, like the void, the gate, like this is all starting to come together. The real plot, the game narrative that the AI is kind of pushing us towards. We also know that Ghazi used the gate to release Samathi. We're just going to call her Samantha because we refer to her as Samantha now. But she's the Naiad demigod god that was released out of the Gate of the Feral Gods by Ghazi. She also has a familiar, which is a sand ooze, which Carl and Katya battled in order to release the land portion of their bubble, of that quadrant. And Carl makes sure, as they're battling the sand ooze, everything just looks very dismal. And Carl has a feeling none of them are going to make it out. And he tells Katya to get out so she can, because he has a theory that like if she gets out and does something, they're going to be just fine. And really, he was just trying to save her and get her out because he didn't want her to try to save him because he kind of felt like it was futile. But as we know, Katya gets out of that weird glass underground castle thing. And we also know that like they release the valve that pushes them out into the ocean, and Carl shields Donut. And this just made me realize like Donut really needs to up her constitution. And he took the majority of the damage in that whole altercation. He's just slamming heal scrolls, and they have their water breathing scrolls, and somehow they end up being okay. And that whole scene was just really funny with Donut, like hating being wet and freaking out. But I just want Donut to increase her constitution. And why is she not had an opportunity to do so? I'm sure someone has an answer for that. I know there was other races she could have changed to that would have increased it, but I just hope there's more opportunities for her to increase that as things move forward. I think Samantha being trapped in an inanimate doll is actually both funny and like a little bit disturbing. And I just feel like Matt does this really good job of just like poking fun at things in our society, just like very much on the nose. And I just feel like these books are just like the best satire I've read in a very, very long time. But she's now part of their party, and I'm just excited to see how she is going to be part of the story moving forward. If I had to venture to guess, I think she's going to wiggle her way into their found family. I think she's going to become an instrumental character. Obviously, Donut added her to their party as a trainer, because Donut, as a party leader, has the ability to do so. So I'm excited about that. My favorite NPC of the week is Juicebox. Just the way she supports children in this level of the dungeon, and how she took Bonnie in. The way she's like, we take care of our own, and she just welcomed her. I just have a strong suspicion that Juicebox isn't going away. That scene with Bonnie, it was just like, it's gut-wrenching. And this girl just went through something, well, she was like kind of like drugged, and so she wouldn't understand what was going on, and she had like that feral goose, like that was her pet. I don't know, that was wild. That whole situation was wild. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I just feel like Juicebox is here to stay, and I think Carl's gonna find a way. I don't know. I just find a way to keep her around. I just have that feeling. I don't know what it is about this character. Same thing with Samantha. I feel like in this book, what's a little bit different is the NPCs are not going to get trapped on the level. I think we're going to start breaking some rules here, if you know what I mean. Some of my favorite donut quotes from these chapters. So first, after Carl smushes like the hordes of like the gerbils coming at him, because the AI is just angry with him, for lack of better words, I don't know. She says, "We are all prostitutes in one way or another, I suppose." And I know I said this time and time again, but I just love how this book is just filled with satirical perfection. And quite frankly, I think it challenges us to like hold a mirror, like not only up to ourselves, but like to society in general, like the things that we kind of put at the forefront and that we prioritize and that we value. And Matt just does a really funny and dark, or I should say Matt has a funny and dark way of doing that. And just Donut, everything she says is just loaded with so many layers. And obviously humor is the most overt thing. It's the most overt layer, but there's always this undercurrent of something more serious and quite frankly thought-provoking beneath it. There was one other moment that I really love between Carl and Donut, and it's when they're like being interrogated by Oren. And Donut kind of always gives off this air of just being like, you know, not as smart or just flippant or just like whatever. But they're just kind of like inserting this useless banter to kind of present this front to Oren, essentially, that they're not so serious. But there's this one part when she's referring to like secret Asian man, and then Carl goes, "It's secret agent man, not secret Asian man." And she's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm sure." Like, how does secret Asian man make sense? And she's like, "Yes, I guess that does make more sense." And I don't know if this was like a unique experience that Matt like touched on, but I'm telling you, I think for a good portion of my childhood, I sang Secret Asian Man. And so I don't know, this part just really struck me as being like ridiculously funny. Honorable mentions in these chapters. Well, first is Carl killing the feral goose boss and a garbage disposal. I was not expecting that. That was crazy work, actually. On the same note, that entire situation with Bonnie, like I said, was just so deeply sad. But there was that moment, like, we know that Carl looted her entire house after the boss battle. And then when he brings her to Juicebox and then he goes and checks in on her, and she's just sad. And Carl pulls her bed out of his inventory just to like offer her a small piece of comfort. And just, even though the bed was clearly not actually hers, but she believed it was hers because it was just ridiculously big. It's just, Carl was thoughtful enough to think like, hey, this might make her feel a bit better. And I just thought that was so intensely sweet. And it's just another example of how these NPCs, even though they're in these like stories for just like such a blip, like the emotional weight that their stories carry is just like so deep. And it's just really sad. The creepy donut merch doll, I briefly touched on that when we talked about Lolita, but like, can we have a moment for like the really dark things and weird things that this little cat said? It was giving like the same energy as like that little star from the Mario movies. It was so creepy, but I also really, really like appreciated it. And then we also got like that up house visualization when they were using like the house and the balloons to like travel around. I thought that was, I don't know, really funny. I didn't know how else to fit in this episode, but I thought it was really funny that they use it as like a transportation vehicle. We also got a ton of information dumped that I haven't really gone over about the 6th and 9th floors. And quite frankly, like a lot of things in this book, I'm trying to process through like, what does this mean exactly? And I feel like I'm ready for some more Maestro vengeance. I feel like TLDR, I just think he's kind of be coming back into play here very shortly. Like he's just like that looming antagonist that's just kind of waiting in the shadows. And so we are going to come to terms with Maestro very soon. And then lastly, I didn't talk about her a lot, but Gwen is so intense, but I don't know, she's really growing on me. And I think it's the reason she's growing on me so much is because she kind of goes at it with Katya, and Katya just seems like such like a meek person, but those two are clashing, and I don't know why. I just find that quite humorous, actually. Some looming questions that I have moving forward. One, how is Carl going to use this gate? We know he's going to use this gate. Like, this is obviously the title of the book. Like, we know it's going to be huge, but he's plotting something. You can feel it in your bones, and I'm just like, man, at the end of this book is gonna be crazy. I know it's gonna be crazy. Is he going to try to help the other changelings get to a lower floor? How does Juicebox become a bigger part of this story? Because I really believe that she is going to become a bigger part of the story. Another thing, when Carl breaks this bubble, which we know he's going to do because he is nothing if not determined, what is he gonna do? Like, Carl is just getting more and more rage-filled, which I love for him. I love for his character arc. And then lastly, we know the term feral in the series is notoriously really, really bad. Like, the feral goose was unhinged. And so what in the world is a feral god going to do? I mean, we saw Maestro come into Grol's body, and that was insane. And he wasn't necessarily feral at the time. So it was hard enough to defeat Maestro. They did it, but like, I'm concerned. I'm concerned moving forward. Well, what is a feral god? What is that going to look like? Who's going to come through the gate if he opens it? Does he know what he's doing here? I don't know. I'm concerned. And lastly, before you go, don't forget to join me next week as I give my final thoughts on The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinniman. Also, do you like me breaking up these books into multiple parts? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to get alerted when there's new episodes. Thank you so much for crawling with me today. Bye.